Hey, Blake T. Wild here, and welcome back to yet another episode of The Ultimate Era, where I am just churning through the original Ultimate Marvel Universe, working my way through as much of it as I can possibly handle, and also, welcome back to the grand finale of The Ultimate Era Presents Spider-Ganza. Thwip, thwip, thwip. A 6-week-long mini-series, I guess, subsection within the Ultimate Era, in which I have been covering Ultimate Spider-Man. That's pretty much all there is to it. I've been wearing the same Spider-Man shirt for the past 6 weeks. I haven't taken it off once. And that's really all there is to it. This is a very sad story. And as always, this episode is brought to you by my Patreon. Check it out. You get early access to videos, movie commentaries. All of my comics are posted on there in high quality, high resolution, alongside my commentary and comments on how the comics came to be. So check it out, as well as my Etsy shop, blaketwild.etsy.com, if you want to pick up the physical copies of my comics. Released in 2006, written by Brian Michael Bendis, with art by Stuart Immonen, this is Ultimate Spider-Man: Death of a Goblin. And this, if you've been following along with my personal headcanon of the Ultimate Marvel Universe, more specifically the Ultimate Spider-Man series, is the first story taking place in Peter Parker's senior year of high school. He's almost done, ladies and gentlemen. He's gonna graduate! And what better way to signify the massive change that he has undergone as a person, especially since that previous volume, than to bring on a brand new artist like the incredible Stuart Immonen. The book begins in the early morning within the lower levels of the Triskelion. Director of S.H.I.E.L.D. Carol Danvers, who became director following Nick Fury's arrest by another dimensional superhero team called The Squadron. Check that video out on my channel now to catch up. Carol has been brought down here because the Triskelion is getting some upgrades and much needed reworkings done and completed to it, and thus the prisoners need to be transported. She's led to a large sealed off metal door, and Carol is told it houses him. And the only thing he ever wants is to talk to Nick Fury. She suggests maybe she should put an eye patch on, and then orders the door to be unlocked.
Norman Osborne.
Who are you?
Captain Carol Danvers. Director Danvers to you. What can I do for you, Mr. Osborne?
I want to talk to Fury.
Fury's not here. What can I do for you?
Where is he?
Not here. What can I do for you? Very busy.
I'm ready to make my deal.
And that is what exactly?
Fury offered me a deal. He offered me privileges in return for my scientific cooperation.
You might have missed the part of our conversation, but Fury ain't here.
Get me Fury, you cow! Get me Fury! Get me my son! This is a complete waste of time just sitting here!
Well, I guess you should have thought about that before you turned yourself into a goblin and killed people.
Woman!
Yeah? Ooh.
Danvers marches away and orders them to up the dosage of Norman's medication, and sometime later, it is lunch hour in Queens on a bright, cloudless September day. The Shocker and his getaway driver round a corner in their Hummer, pursued by the police. Shocker unleashes his vibro shock guns on the cruisers when Spider-Man swings into the scene. A cruiser is hit when Shocker's vibro gun flies out of his hand and discharges, rocketing the car upward into the air. But Spider-Man is able to web it before it crashes into a crowd below as the Hummer speeds down the street. And the driver spots a young woman in the road at the last second, and the Hummer phases through her and drifts to a halt. Spidey swings over after him and is shocked to find Kitty Pryde, aka Shadow Cat. She tells Peter that her mom actually works down the street, and Peter compliments her new costume and thanks her for the team-up. She assures him this was not a team-up, and Peter says it's nice to see her doing the superheroics again. Then he asks if she's still mad at him. She tells him that she is not having this conversation right now. Spidey asks if she wants a lift back to the school, but she declines, and Spider-Man swings away as the crowd of onlookers cheers them on. And after lunch in their home ec class, Mary Jane Watson's mind drifts back to the night that she was transformed by the Oz formula. She snaps back as the teacher speaks to the class about this project that they'll be covering over the course of the next month or so. And that's when Peter rushes through the door, 15 minutes late, followed by Kitty. The class all make an ooh in unison, and the teacher demands that everybody shut up and the kids sit down. She congratulates everyone, because they're now parents! That's right, it's that classic baby simulator project. Split into pairs, the kids will have to take care of a fake baby doll, as well as journal everything that happens to it, keeping a comprehensive log, and ensuring that it doesn't die for the next month. She then begins handing them out. Flash and Liz get a beautiful baby boy. Kenny and a boy named Izzy get a lovely girl. MJ and Brad get a boy. And Peter and Kitty are given a little girl. After class, MJ gets upset that Peter was partnered up with Kitty, and Peter reminds her that he didn't do this. And then Kitty rocks up and asks if they all agree that this is a nightmare. MJ agrees, and Kitty tells Peter that she'll just take the baby and do the diary log, so they don't have to worry about dealing with each other. But MJ tells her it's fine that they do it together. She's just annoyed at their home ec teacher. And then Peter tells Kitty that after everything he's gone through, he can handle a toy baby. And then Flash saunters into the picture and asks if the baby's a half mutant. Half mutant? Half spasmo! A spasmuto! And Kong smacks him upside the head and orders Flash to apologize for being a racist asshole. And Flash apologizes and storms off. And Kenny asks if Kitty's okay. Then he starts stuttering after she thanks him, and MJ enters the scene and tells Kitty that Kong is actually a pretty cool guy, and MJ's surprised that she hasn't gotten to know him in the handful of months that Kitty has attended Midtown. And he was in a movie. And Kenny tells her about the time he had a very minor role in the Spider-Man movie that came out last year, but he points out that she's way cooler than him because she was an X-Man. And the two walk off, and Peter jokes that Kenny just stole the mother of his child. And later in the day, as director Danvers and someone who kind of looks like Phil Coulson, even though this was years before Phil Coulson was invented as a character. But doesn't it look like a stylized Clark Gregg from the two panels that we see him in? I'm claiming this man is the Ultimate Universe version of Agent Phil Coulson. He does appear later in the universe in Ultimate FF, where he leads the Future Foundation. So who's to say this isn't just him? He quit S.H.I.E.L.D. and eventually works for them. This is Ultimate Phil Coulson. Add that to the Marvel fan wiki. Anyway, they're going over a checklist of the prisoners that they need to secure and move during this logistical nightmare, and Danvers asks why they apparently don't have any contingency plans in place. Coulson assures her that they leak sleeping agents into the ventilation systems that knock the prisoners out for 48 hours, and then an agent alerts Danvers that Osborne's prison cell just went dark, all the monitors are dead, along with his vitals, visual, audio, and everything else. They radio into the cell block command, and a massive explosion erupts from the Triskelion. Flashback time. After Danvers pissed off Norman, he just kind of lounged around his cell for many, many hours, practically meditating, planning, thinking about how foolish Danvers and Fury are for not having what he has created. His evolution that he offered to share with them on a silver platter. And eventually Norman begins smoking as he forces the transformation into the goblin upon himself. And the tech in the room begins short-circuiting as the energy builds off of him until his entire cell is a blazing ruin. Then the explosion happens from sub-basement 9, rising as high as the Triskelion itself, and the goblin is released along with all of the other prisoners held within, one of which is a young blonde girl who simply walks past Goblin in a daze. And a figure begins moving towards Goblin as he prepares to escape into the world, the figure of Otto Octavius, who sometime between the Clone Saga and now has been once again imprisoned by S.H.I.E.L.D. I imagine it probably happened briefly after the Clone Saga took place. You know, after Peter and Jessica Drew kicked his teeth in, Fury probably worked his magic to get Otto out of the grasp of the FBI or the CIA, whoever it was, and into S.H.I.E.L.D's talons. I can easily see the FBI selling Octavius down the goddamn river after their special project went haywire and killed pretty much everybody that was in charge of it, except for Otto. Anyway, Otto sarcastically tells Norman that he's looking well, and then he strikes him with a tentacle, and Norman's inner Norman monologue gets pissed that Otto is ruining his moment. And Otto reveals that he gave the feds the Oz formula, but even they still couldn't figure out how to make it do what it did to them. And Peter Parker. Otto goes for another strike when Goblin catches a tentacle and generates a fireball and lunges at him. Otto strikes him once again, and Goblin slams into some rubble. Otto demands that the Big Oaf stand down and consider just how impressive their forced evolution has become. Then he's electrocuted, and Electro saunters up and asks if Norman's in that big green gobby body and asks what the plan is, because he needs some pay and work on the outside. Goblin growls to give him a few days and he'll get in contact. And Electro briefly talks about all the good times they had together, you know, almost taking over the White House, and soars himself away, followed by the Goblin, who rockets out like a missile from the wreckage. Shield choppers open fire as Goblin reaches his apex and falls into the ocean, where he waits until the choppers pass overhead. Then he rockets out of the bay, launching more fireballs and ripping the pilot out of one and crashing the chopper into another. Then he lands on the third and tears his massive claws through the rotor engines, and the helicopter careens into the southern tip of Manhattan. More S.H.I.E.L.D. helicopters race to the scene but lose visual as they're radioed in to continue after Electro, who is heading towards George Washington Bridge. And in the dockyard, Norman steals a utility suit and hat and sneaks away. Later that evening, in the high-rise apartment of criminal lawyer Joseph Sinnott, Joe speaks to a young lady over the phone that he's getting ready to head out to see when he finds Norman Osborne in his bedroom trying on a suit. Norman immediately asks his former lawyer where all the money is that Joe hid for him, because it's a rainy day and he could really use some cash. Joe freaks out and pleads with Norman to just leave, and Norman tells Joe that he was held without a trial and left to rot in Nick Fury's basement, and he needs money and his things. And then he orders Joe to go call Norman's old publicist, Stanley, and make a booking ASAP. And that night, as the evening news begins, covering the events that unfolded at the Triskelion earlier that day, the Ultimates working to arrest and detain the escapees throughout New York, we cut to correspondent Patsy Walker. She begins that Norman Osborne was once a brilliant philanthropist and scientist on the cutting edge of genetic technologies. But his fate in recent years has fallen into a mystery until tonight. Because on live television, Norman Osborne is going to discuss the events that led his life down a dark, terrible path where he found himself incarcerated without trial by the same government he's dedicated his life to work for. And back at the Triskelion, Danvers assures the president that Magneto's cell was not affected by the damages. Then an agent alerts her of what is currently airing. Norman Osborne telling the whole country, the whole world, that his son was taken away from him, his company shut down, his home, and everything he owns removed from his possession, and then he was sent to prison by Director of S.H.I.E.L.D. Nick Fury, who then began experimenting on Norman Osborne with untested chemical compounds that turned him into a monster. And Norman tries not to tear up as he confirms that this is what happened to him. He tells Patsy Walker that he was tasked by the US government and S.H.I.E.L.D. to create a genetic formula that could one day solve the super soldier serum. But they took it from him and imprisoned him. And the only reason he's even here is because that lunatic Otto Octavius murdered those poor S.H.I.E.L.D. agents, and Norman ran, and he breaks down because he doesn't know what to do. And in Queens, MJ and Peter discuss double dating with Johnny and some girl that he's seeing when Norman Osborn's face appears plastered on all kinds of screens in a shop window. MJ fucking panics and runs away, and Peter chases after her, grabs her, and pulls her into the mouth of an alley as she hyperventilates and nearly passes out. Peter calms her down as she exclaims that Osborne's going to kill them. But Peter assures her that Osborne only wants to kill him. And they slowly return to the store that's broadcasting the news, and they watch as Norman Osborn discusses Fury's hand in creating the Goblin. And MJ is now in the anger stage of Kubler-Ross, and wonders why the hell Norman escapes jail and immediately goes to the news networks to try and set Nick Fury up like this. And so they run home. Then MJ's mom speeds up in her own car. She orders Mary to get in immediately because she saw Osborne's broadcast and they're getting the hell out of town and living in hotels for however long it takes for Osborne to be apprehended. Peter tells MJ that that's a good idea and that she should go, and they hug and share their love for each other. And then MJ climbs in, and she and her mom speed away. Peter enters his house and finds Aunt May sitting with her boyfriend, Miles Warren. They're introduced, but Peter is a bit preoccupied and asks to speak with May in the kitchen, and he quickly informs her of the Norman Osborn situation and tells her that she needs to get somewhere else. Somewhere safe. Then Miles calls and apologizes for having to leave because one of his old patients is having an episode, and he says goodbye to the Parkers. They wait until he's gone and get back into things. Peter tells May that she needs to pack what she needs and get going because a mutated insane man is now stalking them. May tells him to come with her, but Peter refuses. About 20 minutes later, Peter sees May to her car after she's packed, and he jokes that, hey, now she can go order room service and watch pay-per-view and relax at a hotel pool, and reminds her to make sure that she take it easy, what with her heart. May assures him that she has her meds, they say goodbye, share their love for one another, and May drives off into the growing night. A half an hour of web slinging later, Peter arrives into the dark and abandoned Osborne high-rise, and he sneaks around ready for anything except this. A bald man walking out of the shower. Electro! And back at the Triskelion, Danvers once again speaks with President Bush, assuring him that what Osborne said is not true because a Fury arrested him after he attacked people. An agent that informs her that they're picking up metahuman signals from downtown Manhattan. And in downtown Manhattan, Electro attacks Spider-Man and escapes out of the balcony into the city. Spidey begins swinging after Electro, informing him that he forgot his dignity inside as they wind up fighting across Times Square until Spider-Man webs his hand and uses it to slam Electro. Electro strikes back and launches Spidey through a shopping center, then S.H.I.E.L.D. troops arrive and open fire. Electro returns it and unleashes havoc and destruction onto Broadway. Spidey uses the S.H.I.E.L.D. distraction to slam a tire into him, and then grabs a loose telephone wire and wraps him up. And then Electro goes fucking mental, exclaiming that he'll kill everyone! But the little guy overdoes it and loses consciousness, and the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents keep their weapons trained on Spider-Man and demand that he get onto his knees because he is under arrest. Spidey quickly dodges out of the way of their blasts, but he's struck in the shoulder and crumbles to the ground. And somewhere in Queens, Kitty and Kenny work on their trigonometry homework together at Kitty's house. They compare and contrast Midtown and the Xavier Institute when Kitty notices the TV. She unmutes it as the news reports that Spider-Man has been arrested by S.H.I.E.L.D. They're both shocked, and Kitty asks Kenny what the nicest way is that she can kick him out because she has to go help Spider-Man. And about an hour later, a very groggy, very unmasked, very de-web-shootered Peter Parker wakes up in a cell beneath the Triskelion. He finds Director Danvers standing before him, and Peter demands to know what the hell this is all about as Danvers fiddles around with one of his web shooters. Peter chastises her for wasting it, because that stuff doesn't grow on trees. Peter asks who she is, and she explains that she's the new Nick Fury. Peter sarcastically congratulates her and asks if he can get going now, but Danvers declines, telling him that she's forced to play a game that she didn't invent, nor is she particularly good at, but it's a game that has to be played. Peter asks if it's Hungry Hungry Hippos, and Danvers smirks. And elsewhere in the city, at the home of Joe Sinnott, attorney at law, he and Norman watch the news broadcast. Norman can't believe how fucking hilarious this is all turning out. He escapes and S.H.I.E.L.D. arrests Spider-Man and that clingy electric idiot. This is pretty great. Joe once again recommends, as Norman's lawyer, to give himself up to the authorities, but Norman once again reminds him that he's never actually been charged with anything, and as such, Joe is not abetting or aiding a criminal. Joe tells him he's an enemy of the state because he attacked the White House. and Norman leers down at him, asking if he stole his money. And his eyes begin to burn. Back at the Triskelion, Danvers has fun thwipping and asks Peter what he and Fury's deal was exactly. And so Peter reluctantly tells her that Fury said that he was letting Peter get through his life, graduate high school, then once he was an adult, he'd offer Peter the chance to join S.H.I.E.L.D. or put in a good word with the Ultimates or something. She asks if that's really what he wants to do when he grows up, to be a superhero. Peter tells her that he'll settle with just growing up at this point. And then he asks where they are. She assures him that he's safe beneath the Triskelion. She's just trying to figure out what she's going to do with him after Osborne is taken care of. Because new rules are being written every day about powers, mutants, and superheroes. And then she gets a call from Agent Wu in the Upper West Side. He informs her that a high-rise is currently burning to the ground. One of the tenants was Joseph Synod, attorney-at-law. Wu continues that there are no witnesses of Osborne being here, and if he did use his powers, then their eye-in-the-sky satellite should be able to track the power signature. She tells him to keep her updated, and then hangs up. Carol Danvers then marches back into the room when Shadowcat phases through her torso. Kitty snatches Spidey's mask and web shooters and phases into the cell. Then she phases Peter through the floor and up outside. Not long after, they arrive at a pier and try to steal a boat when the floodlights clash over them, and Danvers orders them to stand down. Kitty yells that she's leaving with Peter, especially after they arrested him for no reason, and Carol reveals that she has a nice, fancy mutant power paralyzing device held in her hand. The duo shout at her, and she rubs her temples and explains that she was holding her little boyfriend in protective custody because she wanted to use him as bait. Carol continues that she needs Norman not out in the open and in the fucking city, so if she conducts a public capture of Spider-Man, she figured he'd come after Peter. But now she has to deal with some dumb teenage girl in a weird mask. The two argue that they should have fucking told him that, and then an agent runs up and informs her that they've tracked Norman's energy signature to Trump Tower. Carol redirects her troops and orders a Hulkbuster unit to suit up and get airborne. Then she enlists Shadowcat and Spider-Man as she suits up. Kitty is nervous about using a gun, but Danvers informs her that it's just a neuro-neutralizer. Then she unofficially deputizes the two as S.H.I.E.L.D. agents for the night. Later, Spider-Man swings through the city as a legion of S.H.I.E.L.D. agents soar behind him. And at Trump Tower, Norman meets with his old accountant, demanding his money back or else he'll really hurt his wife and daughter. And he transforms into the Goblin. Then he's riddled by S.H.I.E.L.D. and Spider-Man lunges inside and kicks him in the jaw before a heavy weapon is fired directly into Goblin, and Kitty helps rescue the family. Goblin rises to his feet and Spidey notes that he's still not down, like Danvers said he should be. Spidey swings and hits, then he webs him up some more until he runs out because Carol kept fucking with it. Goblin grabs him by the ankle and launches him out of the penthouse window. S.H.I.E.L.D. agents surround the building and unload from every possible direction as Goblin stumbles out of the window after Spider-Man. Kitty watches and realizes that Peter is out of webbing and dives after him as he plummets the 50-something floors to the ground below. The Goblin roars as he nears after Peter, and Kitty tries desperately to speed up as Danvers and S.H.I.E.L.D. rocket after them. Kitty uses her powers to phase through the air itself and remove the limit of terminal velocity, and at the last second, Peter and Kitty sit in a massive sewer beneath the city. They unfortunately catch their breath there, and then Kitty brings them back up top, where they find a massive, ruined intersection. Peter asks Danvers where the hell the Goblin is, and the agent tells her that Osborne leapt away like the Hulk and they lost track of him. So she tells him that they better fucking find him. As Peter leaps up to the ruined street lamp and looks around. He lands, tells Kitty that they need to go, and then thanks Danvers for such a wonderful and productive night. But because they have school in a few hours, he grabs Kitty and they head out. And he tells Danvers that if he sees the Goblin, he'll just wait until Nick Fury is back on planet Earth. But because he's out of webbing, Kitty has to just kind of hold on to him as they climb up a building. They get to the rooftop and Kitty does the Marion Ravenwood line again, and Peter tells her that he was hoping Norman was hiding nearby and that he'd actually chase after him after they left S.H.I.E.L.D., but no dice. And then he thanks her for coming to rescue him, and she tells him to just not make a thing of it. Peter apologizes for how they ended things, how he technically didn't end things, which made ending things far worse, and tells her that she didn't deserve that. Kitty tells him that she is very aware of that fact, and then asks if MJ and Aunt May are safe. Peter tells her that they are, they left town, and then complains about how sick and tired of Norman Osborne he is. Kitty asks if he wants to sleep over at her place tonight just to be safe, but Peter declines. She tells him not to be weird and reveals that she's actually thinking about dating Kenny from school. She asks if he's actually a good guy like MJ said, and Peter assures her that he is if he's not hanging around with Flash and his dumb buddies, since he has a kind of sidekick-itis, unfortunately. He's yet to come out of his shell and, really become his own person. The two then head over the Queensboro Bridge and briefly stop, Peter making sure that Osborne still isn't coming after him. And about an hour later, after taking Kitty Pryde home, Peter looks through his neighborhood, sees nothing, hearing less, and slinks inside and changes. And then he realizes he overlooked the bright pink hippie-mobile parked down the road. So he grabs some snacks and soda and heads out, knocks on the door, and gives the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents inside something to eat and drink. They thank him, and Peter checks out all the cool technology that they got in their van. One of the guys says that they're actually big fans of Spider-Man and everything he does, and Peter asks how they became S.H.I.E.L.D. agents, and the guy is like, you just kind of sign up. And one of them notes that the pay isn't great, but you get to do quite a bit, and the pension is quite nice. And then they show off the sweet camouflaging van, noting that it also flies, but they can't do that without authorization. Peter says that they can head inside if they need anything, or need to use the bathroom or something, and they thank him and then close up. And Peter heads back inside and checks the home phone voicemails, and then his spider sense goes off.
Peter.
Get out.
Cute display back in the city.
There are S.H.I.E.L.D. agents right outside the house.
As long as I don't use my powers, they'll stay right there. But if you want me to kill them, then by all means, go and get them.
What do you want?
Oh, sorry, I borrowed one of your aunt's bed sheets. Nothing you had in the house fit me.
What do you want?
I want the life I had back. I want my money, my son, and I'll gladly destroy Nick Fury and anyone else who gets in my way.
Bad time to break out, Normie. Nick Fury ain't around anymore. Hence the fact he hasn't disintegrated you.
Yes, I have noticed that. My boy, you are the only proof left on the entire planet that I am a genius. You're my legacy. You're my proof that I belong in the world.
I was an accident.
So was penicillin.
You created you. That's all you've created. What you did to Harry?
Yes, but I'm a monster. You're a hero. My greatest work. You're what I will be remembered for. And if you, hero of New York, congratulations, by the way, step forward and tell the world that I created you, if the world sees that, given that chance, I could create more. All else is forgiven.
You're a murderer!
You know, after World War II, this country gladly welcomed in Nazi scientist after Nazi scientist who did 50,000 times worse than I could ever imagine.
Listen, Slappy, I'm not going to help you. You're so crazy that crazy isn't even a sufficient word.
I have nothing to lose, Peter. You do. You have so much to lose.
See, that's the kind of talk that bums everyone out about you, Norman. But I'm not scared of you. Especially when you're wearing a toga.
What is it?
It says, turn on CNN. Peter grabs the remote, and the two watch as S.H.I.E.L.D. Director Carol Danvers and several agents stand before a press conference with Harry Osborne at the Triskelion. Harry sends a message to the people of New York City that his father is a liar, a sick and deluded man who killed his mother and turned Harry into the same monster that he turned himself into. And Norman's eyes begin burning. A few minutes later, Peter wakes up after having been rendered unconscious after Norman goblined out and struck him upside the head. And as the sun crests over the horizon and the overcast storm clouds reveal themselves in a birthing sunlight, Peter heads for the Triskelion. Harry asks Danvers if that was okay and all, and he did well, and she tells him it was great. Then she also reveals that it wasn't actually CNN. It was a very closed broadcast to the one television that they knew his father was watching, and Danvers orders him to get down below and secured. Then they make their way across the helicarrier deck as the first drops of rain begin to fall, and Carol suits up. Then the goblin is spotted, lunging through the dark, sickening sky. Danvers orders all weapons to open fire, and the goblin is shot down. She orders some agents to get Harry into the helicarrier as the entire ship rocks as the goblin lands.
May I have a word with my son?
Fire at will.
This is a thanks I get. I'm very disappointed in you, boy.
I'm not letting you go yet, so just say night-night because I am not letting you go!
Fire, fire, fire!
Harry, are you okay?
Hey, Pete. Not really.
Oh, Christ.
Man, you really have a way with people, don't you? You are 21st century crazy. New and improved crazy. Truly award-worthy. Stop! You have to stop!
I am your father, Harold. And this is the thanks you give me for giving you everything. This is how you honor me.
You killed your own son.
Kill me. Kill me, please.
Gladly.
No. Danvers tells him that she is truly sorry. Peter asks why they didn't just use the Oz formula cure that Reed Richards made for MJ on Harry. Danvers assures him that they tried, but it never worked. Peter tells her to stay the hell away from him and out of his life because she is not Nick Fury, and he doesn't know her. And Danvers watches as he walks away. 2 days later, in class, Peter stands up and asks if he can say something, and he tells everyone that he learned that Harry Osborne died a few days ago. And even though no one really talks about him since he disappeared again, Peter just doesn't feel that it's right because he's gone now. And he was wondering if anyone who knew Harry could just share their thoughts and feelings for a moment. And Peter begins to tear up, and MJ and Liz start crying, and Peter gives his eulogy to Harry Osborne, someone who, even after everything they were going through and dealing with, still was kind and stood up for others who couldn't stand up for themselves. Peter says that he's thought a lot about what kind of person does that. And that person is a hero. And they lost him. The end. Hope you enjoyed. Let me know what your thoughts are on the comic in the comments below. As always, like I say every time, I fucking love Ultimate Spider-Man. It is so good. The comic, not the TV show. It's spectacular. It's heart-pounding. It's fast-moving. It's scary, especially this one, for two reasons, I think. One is that we don't really know Director Danvers' true motives, and two, we don't know where the hell Norman Osborn is for most of this volume. He becomes akin to Michael Myers or Jason Voorhees in this story arc. And like even early on in the character's history, he does kind of have that Michael Myers death where he's like, you know, thrown asunder and just his body disappears. It's every turn of the page, you're just waiting for like a giant panel splash page showing the Goblin suddenly striking out at Peter, revealing himself from the shadows that he was hidden in. But he doesn't. And Bendis and Immonen work so well together to build up that paranoia of where's Norman? Is he here? Is he watching Peter right now? You feel the same thoughts and feelings that Peter does, where you're like, it's fucking coming. It's coming. Where is he? It's so unnerving. And anytime that Norman's not on the page, they really make the reader ask, where's Norman? And like I said, he's just a fucking slasher movie villain. Not just in this, but up until this point and onward in the Ultimate Universe, because he just doesn't fucking die. He's pretty much a living, breathing demon at this point due to his continual mutation, and I really want to see a closer adaptation of this kind of Norman Osborn in the future. Maybe in Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. We got Psycho Norman in Spider-Man from Raimi and No Way Home. Those are both fantastic. I love Willem Dafoe, who doesn't, especially Norman Osborn as played by him. But there's just something about the Ultimate Norman Osborn and how he just keeps coming back. He's like a fucking cancerous tumor. He's unkillable at this point. Seemingly, nothing's stopping the bastard. And I love how absolutely fucking manic and psychopathic he's become. Just outwardly so. And I also love that this shows the kind of building distrust and disdain that the general public have growing, you know, towards S.H.I.E.L.D., who have long been argued against due to their tactics. Even Tony Stark had to go on a good public PR tour before and during Ultimates 2. So the fact that Norman was so easily able to sway public opinion in his favor like this is really a unique aspect to this world building and growth and evolution of this universe. And of course we get the tragic death of Harry Osborn, which is the most tragic Harry Osborn death there's ever been, I feel. Because he has just had a ruined life since the Oz formula was created and his father became the Goblin. And he doesn't come back, unlike pretty much every other Harry Osborn. Then, when he finally does try to do something good in his life and try to stop his father from hurting others like he hurt Harry, showing that, you know, Harry does truly care and want to help people and is so unlike his father. And like Peter said in his eulogy, it's that ruined potential. The potential that Harry really could have helped people and helped the world if Norman hadn't been in the picture or hadn't been his father. But that's not the only failings in this book. It also shows S.H.I.E.L.D.'s utter hubris. Danvers explicitly notes early on that they just have no fucking contingency plans laid out in the event of a prisoner escape such as this. They fly by the seat of their pants because of Fury's inane policies. And because of that, Norman is again able to turn public perception because Fury just can't help himself but keep these mutants and the metahumans and anyone else that he arrests around, just in case they wind up being useful for him. And of course, it's so dark. It's such a dark story. It kind of reminds me, the Ultimate Spider-Man, of Harry Potter. Even though I've never read the books and I've seen the movies once over 10 years ago, from what I remember and recall, the story kind of gradually evolves into like darker and more mature subjects and storytelling as the series progresses, growing in accordance with the audience as well as they aged up. So as Peter Parker grows older, these stories begin to become darker. I mean, the story was dark to begin with, especially, the first arc, and especially with Goblin appearing. It's something that no teenager should ever have to experience. No one should ever have to experience. But at this point, that darkness is abyssal. And on my one final note, it's something happy and lighter, and that's the fact that I really like Kitty Pryde's Shadowcat costume. I don't know why, it's strange, it's weird, it feels like it shouldn't work, but I just really like it and think it works so well. I love the colors, I especially love the mask and the weird eyeless, like, quarter face thing. It honestly kind of reminds me of Nighthawk's original costume from the Squadron Supreme. But those are my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts, and let me know your thoughts on my thoughts. And as always, check out my Patreon, patreon.com/Smokey's videos for early access to videos when available, movie commentaries, comic commentaries, all of my comics posted on there as well, and more. Check out my Etsy shop, blaketwild.etsy.com, for the physical copies of my books. Every purchase comes with a free head sketch of any character of your choosing. And check out my podcast, the Comic Shtick Podcast, where comics are my shtick. And I Need Some Disney, where my Disney-obsessed wife and myself sit down to discuss all things Disney. And I will see you guys next time. Bye.